Welcome to Lakeshore Christian Church's Midweek podcast. I'm Pastor Randy Cordell. We're coming to you live from our studio at our Antioch campus here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. We're happy to have you joining us today. If you haven't already done so, we'd love for you to subscribe to the podcast. Hit that subscribe button. You can also hit that notification bell. You get notified every time we post a new episode. We come to you live on Wednesdays at noon, but once it's posted, you can listen to it on most popular podcast platforms. Each week on the podcast, we take some time to review the message that we're in, message series that we're in at Lakeshore Christian Church. Our weekend services, we usually have a series of messages that we're doing, and this past Sunday, we kicked off our brand new series called When Less is More. We thought it was a good way to start the new year because so many of us, as we're entering into a new year, have we take time to review our lives from the previous year. We look ahead to the new year, and we often make resolutions or decisions about what we want to change or do better with in the coming year. And one of the things that most people say they struggle with is how their lives get too complicated, overscheduled, and they need to simplify. They need to scale back. And so this series is going to be dealing with how when less is more. It's because we can focus on the things that are most important, and we can weed out some things that we don't really have to give so much time and attention to, and that frees us up. It frees up our schedules. It frees up our focus to stay focused on the things that really matter the most. We also, Sunday, kicked off our 50th anniversary celebration. This year, 2024, is the year that we celebrate 50 years as a church. It was officially incorporated back in 1974. We're going to be celebrating all year long, but we're going to have a special day of celebration on the actual anniversary of the incorporation, which is November the 17th of this year. So we hope you can mark that on your calendars. If you can join us for that celebration, we'd love for you to do that. Well, the first message we started with this past Sunday in the series, When Less is More, is a message about simple but not easy. How things that are simple aren't always easy to do, but we need to focus on trying to simplify. I mentioned Sunday a book that my beautiful bride, Sue Ann, published, I think, back in 2011. She's written several books. She's an excellent writer and teacher. A book called Simplify, and it's Life Anchored in Purpose. I highly recommend that you check this book out. You can order it on the website shineworthytea.com. We'll put that in the show notes for you today, so that you can click on that link and order that book. The series is not based on this book, the message series is not, but this book gives just great practical teaching for ways to simplify and uncomplicate our lives. So I would recommend it to you very highly. In the message Sunday, when we're talking about simple but not easy, the first thing we looked at was the fact that when we're thinking about making those changes, when we're thinking about simplifying life, it was good to go back to some teaching that Jesus gave us in the Sermon on the Mount. Toward the end of that series of teaching in Matthew chapter 7, toward the end of the Sermon on the Mount, he gives people this lens that we need to be looking at life through. And part of what he's talking about here is how it doesn't need to be complicated. There's really this illustration that he uses as a parable or an illustration or a metaphor that he uses in Matthew 7, beginning with verse 24. He said this: "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it didn't fall, because it had its foundation on the rock." And then he contrasts that first person with the other person, the people who hear these words of mine. He says in verse 26, and they don't apply them, doesn't put it into practice, it doesn't align life with them. It's like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. And so it's not that complicated, the story that he tells. It's really pretty simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy to do. He's talking about two different approaches to building a house. And the house is a metaphor for life. We're all building a house. Everyone builds a house because it's your life. You're building your life by every decision you make along the way, every choice that you make along the way. It builds your life. So the foundation you're building on makes a huge difference because everybody's going to be building on some foundation. And we have to choose, as we're thinking about the decisions we're making, what is the foundation for those decisions? What is it we're going to be basing our decisions on as we go through life? Because another illustration that he uses here is when we build that house, everybody is going to face storms. As you build your life, as you're going through life, storms are going to come. In both verse 25 and verse 27, he says, the rain came down on both houses. The wind blew up against both houses. They all had to weather the storm, so to speak, both houses. And all of us in life have to understand that because we are fallen people, we're living in a world under the curse of sin. Because of the consequences of sin and that curse of sin, there's trouble in this world. Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble. It's not if, it's when. So when we're making decisions that build our lives, we have to think about, okay, will this decision be one that aligns me with Jesus so that I can stand up against the storms that are going to come my way in life? We don't always think about, when we're making decisions, how they will either help us stand up against the storm or they will hurt us in our ability to stand up in the storms of life and the troubles that we're going to face. So storms, when they come, they reveal the foundation that we've been building on. If it's a good foundation, it's going to reveal, hey, we were able to weather the storm well. We were able to stand up against it. But if it's not a good foundation, what we're going to find out is when the storms come, it causes our lives to fall apart. We begin to crumble in the face of the storm. So the question to wrestle with that we all need to think through as we start this new year is, what foundation are you building your house on? You have to make a conscious decision to build on a good foundation. Otherwise, you're going to just go with the flow and end up building on the sand, on the foundation that won't stand up when you need it to as the storms come in your life. And Jesus says the person who builds their house on a bad foundation is a foolish builder. If you're building your life on the wrong thing, that's a foolish way to go through life, because storms are going to come. And you had the choice to make as you were making those decisions. What foundation am I actually going to be building on? We have a few foundations that are popular these days that people often build on that aren't going to be good, secure foundations. One is what could be labeled as individualism, where all my interests are the center of my life and my reality, and I'm not concerned about anybody else or consequences that may come. I'm just thinking about myself and myself only when I make these decisions. And that can lead oftentimes to what has been labeled as hedonism. And hedonism is really, that approach is when you start making decisions based on what brings me the most pleasure immediately, right now, in the moment. Jesus has taught, the scripture has taught us that sin is pleasurable for a season. So some of those things that bring pleasure are perfectly good things that are okay, but some of the things that bring that pleasure temporarily are not good things, and they have terrible consequences that come along with them. And so hedonism would be, I don't care about the consequences. I'm just going to do whatever feels good right now, whatever brings me pleasure at the moment. Some people are building on that foundation. And it's closely connected. All these overlap, and they're closely connected to each other. But one is also called existentialism. And that's where this is the one that I find is most prominent right now, that is being promoted more than anything else right now. And it's the idea that we create our own truth and our own meaning, that you speak your truth, you live your truth, I'll speak mine, I'll live mine, you do you, I'll do me, right? And you have your own truth there. And this existentialism really boils down to this. There is no absolute truth for everybody. Nothing is absolutely true. And so you get to pick and choose whatever you want to believe to be true. The problem, of course, with that is some things are absolutely true and some things are absolutely false. You can't live life that way without some negative consequences, because truth is truth whether you believe it or feel it or want to accept it or not. And so if it's true, it's going to be something that carries consequences with it that always come with that, good and bad. So we need to be able to distinguish what is true. And another common foundation that a lot of people are building on today is materialism. And again, it's connected to that making me the center of the universe. But it goes further. It says my worth as a person is tied to my worth financially. So my self-image is tied to this. My worth in society is tied to this. It's how much money I make, how much I have in the bank, how big and nice my house is, what kind of car do I drive. All of those things determine what my life is really all about and really worth. And one of the saddest things for me as a pastor is to see people who spend decades building on the wrong foundation. And sometimes not only are they told they're building on the wrong foundation, they are celebrated for building their lives on the things that they're building them on. Even when it's the wrong, it's not a sure foundation. It's not the thing that's going to stand up in the storm. Verse 24 in this parable that Jesus tells in Matthew 7 starts with the word therefore. Before he says this about building your house on the sand or building your house on the rock, he says therefore. It's like a person building their house. Well, what's that there for? It's there to refer back to the fact that one day everybody is going to stand before God, and we're going to find out our eternal destination. We're going to find out if we prepared like we needed to for eternity when we stand before God. And so this judgment is going to take place. And what we built our lives on, the foundation we've built on, will determine where we stand in judgment. If we built on Jesus Christ, on the solid rock of Christ, and we listen to his words and we put them into practice, that puts us in good standing before God, and the reward and the consequences are good that go with that. So the rock that he says that we're building on is not just the teachings of Christ. A lot of people know about Jesus, they know some of his teaching, but they don't apply it to their lives. Building on the rock means, according to what Jesus taught us here, it's obedience to the teachings of Jesus. He says, if you hear these words of mine and not just hear them, but put them into practice, then you're like the person who built on the good foundation, who built on the rock. And when the storms come, when you're following those teachings and practicing those teachings, when the storms come, he will be there with you and for you. You'll have the strength of his teaching to hold you up through the storms. And you'll not only be able to survive the storm, but you'll be able to thrive even in the storms. That's why what Jesus is teaching here is so important, because as we start this new year, so many people are thinking, what do I want my life to look like this year? Where do I want to be at the end of this year? Well, it all depends on what foundation we build on this year. Make sure that you're not just sitting in church listening to the teachings of Jesus, or sitting at your house listening to it online, or whatever, however you are getting that teaching. Not that you're just listening to it, but that you're actually applying it to your life. You're living it out daily. Because every time you make a decision to do that, you are building your life on that firm foundation that's going to take you where you really want to go. So if God blesses us with another year, it will take you to that place at the end of this next year where you can look back and say, I did a better job this year of not only listening to the words of Jesus, but actually living by them. And it has brought me to a better place at the end of this year than I would have gotten to had I not really applied those teachings. So I hope you'll go back. If you missed the message, you could go back and catch it on our YouTube channel. This coming Sunday, we're going to continue this series, a message that I've entitled, Let Me Check My Schedule. I find myself saying that a lot when people call me or text me or email me and say, I'd like to set up a time, or they see me at the church service and say, we'd love to get together sometime. I say, well, just call me or email me or text me. I will then look at my schedule and we'll try to set something up. And I know that's not a bad thing to do. It's a really good thing to do, as a matter of fact. You miss a lot if you don't get it on your schedule. But the problem is, so many of us, when we look at our schedules, we have filled them to the capacity that we could fill them with. Even beyond that, sometimes we overfill our schedules so that we can't possibly do all those things, and maybe do them, but do them well. We can't do them with the focus we need to have, with the investment of our time and energy and resources that we need to give to those things. And so Let Me Check My Schedule is all about prioritizing, focusing on the things that matter the most. We're going to be looking at, in Luke chapter 10, there's this account of Jesus going to a home to visit. It's the home of Mary and Martha. We find out later, if you look at the whole context of Scripture, these are Lazarus' sisters. And when he goes to their house, one is ready to sit down and listen to Jesus. Just welcomes the opportunity, realizes how valuable that opportunity is. The other one, the other sister, is just so distracted by all the preparations. We've got an important visitor. We got to make sure the house is clean. We got to get the good china out. We've got to make sure the food is exactly right. We got all these preparations. And one sister misses the opportunity to just be in the presence of Jesus and spend time with him because she's so worried about those things. Sometimes people refer to it as the Martha syndrome. So you have to think about that. Is the focus of your life on the things that it needs to be. Not necessarily that you're focused on bad things. Some people are, and you certainly need to correct that. But more than that, are you focused on the best things? Or is the business of life keeping you from the best things that you could be spending time and energy and resources on? So we're going to look at several things on how to refocus on what matters the most and reduce the non-essentials that keep cluttering our schedules so that we can reprioritize our lives in a way that will allow us to experience the very best that God has for us. I hope you can join us this coming Sunday. We have services at our Antioch campus at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. We have a service at our Smyrna campus at 10 a.m. And we live stream our services every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. If you're local, we'd love for you to be with us in person. If you can't do that, we hope you'll connect with us online. And we love for you to, when you connect with us online, we have people that are monitoring the chat box there. If you're connecting on YouTube, let us know where you're listening from. Ask any questions you might have. We'll be happy to follow up with you there at our online live stream during that time. Well, before we go today, I want to remind you of a few things we've got going on. It is an exciting time at Lakeshore. As I said, we kicked off our 50th anniversary this past Sunday, and I am wearing one of the shirts we have made up for this. This is a 50th anniversary shirt. It's got the anniversary crest on it. We have these available now at both campuses. If you'd like to get one, they're $15 each. All profits go back to support the work of Lakeshore Christian Church. And these are going to be nice keepsake T-shirts. I'd love for you to pick one up this Sunday or the next time you're with us in person. We'd love for you to do that. We also have a couple other things coming up. A baby dedication on January the 21st. If you've recently had an addition to your family, we love to celebrate that with you and join with you in praying over you as a parent and praying over your children that you're dedicating to God. We need you to register in advance for that. You can do that on our website, lakeshorechristian.com, or you can do that if you're at one of our campuses at the kiosk in the lobby there. If you're new to Lakeshore, we want to invite you to join us for a welcome lunch. The lunch is free, but you need to register in advance. It's for Sunday, February the 4th. It'll be after the 10 o'clock service at the Smyrna campus or the 11 o'clock service at the Antioch campus. Please register in advance for that. We have a Valentine photo station we're going to be setting up on Sunday, February the 11th at both campuses. It's a fun photo station you can take some fun pictures at. Have a good time with that for Valentine's Day. We'd love for you to come prepared to have some fun that day and taking some pictures there. And we want you to, as a reminder, to save the date of November the 17th. That's when we have the big celebration of our 50 years as a church. We want you to come and join us anytime you can as we continue to connect, grow, and serve here at Lakeshore Christian Church.